So wait, what are we recording? Awesome. So episode 4, that's what we're on. Well, thank you so much. Today we have Kristin van Busum, co-founder and CEO of Project Alianza.
The founder.
The founder
Yeah.
of Project Alianza.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for coming in to chat with us. Usually what we do is we get the team together every other week, and then we meet with our founders to talk about some of their challenges and why they started their company. So, excuse me. Thank you for doing this. Do you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. So Project Alianza is I'm going to look at you guys instead of the camera.
Yeah, you should.
Right?
I mean, yeah, you should. I mean,
Okay.
forget about the camera.
Forgetting about you.
Mm-hmm.
We are, excuse me, I'm burping up pizza.
Yeah, likewise.
We are a social impact organization. We're a nonprofit, and we provide education for children in Central American farming communities. So many of the children we work with are growing up on coffee plantations where our specialty coffee grows. And they don't have access to school because it's really far for them to get to school. It's the school quality that they do have access to is really poor. And typically the greater community doesn't value education because their parents don't have an education, their grandparents don't have an education. So there's nothing there really disrupting the cycle of poverty. So at Project Alianza, we help to first provide access to schools by building them in partnership with the government and with coffee estates. We also improve learning outcomes in the classroom because if children by 3rd grade aren't at a 3rd grade reading level, they're more likely to drop out. But if children are at a 3rd grade reading level at 3rd grade, they're more likely to graduate high school. So we really target improving learning outcomes in the classroom so kids aren't repeating grades. And then we provide scholarships and mentorships to kids that want to continue on to secondary school. So it's sort of this comprehensive package for helping improve access, quality, and continuing education for kids that are living on just a couple dollars a day.
Nice.
And that are, in really challenging circumstances.
Nice, that's awesome. I think you're the first nonprofit that we've... You're a nonprofit, right?
We're a nonprofit.
501(c) or 501(c)(3)?
Yeah, you got it. 501(c)(3), yeah.
501(c)(3).
Yeah.
I almost started one, you remember?
I wouldn't say you almost started one.
Yeah, I almost started one. I wanted to change Ghana, but that's a story for another episode. But why? I mean, what's your background? Prior to this, what were you doing?
So prior to this, I was working at a policy research institute. It's called RAND Corporation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a global policy think tank, and I was in the Boston office because we were doing a lot of research around healthcare in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a background in research. I was really focused on large-scale change through policy. That was really my passion. And I took 1 year off to do a Fulbright fellowship. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Fulbright. And I decided I wanted to go to Nicaragua. And when I was down there, I thought, I'm just going to take a year off to do an interesting research project. And it was really transformational for me. And through that research project, I was, living in these really remote communities. Yeah. And I saw so many kids out of school that I decided to, basically leave my life in Boston, my job in Boston, and commit myself to this new cause.
Can I throw my liberal joke in there?
Yeah.
You wanted to help the poor people.
I want to help the poor people, you're right.
Yeah.
However, 2 points to that. That's true, and that I'll take any joke from you.
Okay.
I get all the white savior jokes.
Yeah.
There's a couple things, and one thing that'll catch your guys' attention in the startup world is social innovation. So when you think about change, we think about change at a policy level, but real innovation happens when you can change at a community level because you don't have to go through all of the bureaucratic red tape.
Right.
And so to be innovative, you engage people at a community level, and that's what we do as a nonprofit.
Got it.
So we're really innovating and disrupting, just like you guys are disrupting how people commute. We're disrupting how people get education.
Nice.
And because it is the bottom of the pyramid market where they don't have a lot of dollars to spend, we ask them to invest their time. We ask them to contribute food or supplies to help improve education. So they're still paying into it. That's our market.
Got it.
Those are our users. So, we're being just as innovative as any tech company,
Of course.
but we're innovating in this challenging context.
Yeah.
So that's what I think is really inspiring about our work is we don't think of nonprofits that way.
Yeah.
We're not one of those nonprofits that works through a church. We're A-religious, we're A-political. We are just innovating education. That's all we're doing. Nice. So we're not a top-down approach at all.
Got it.
And I'm the only U.S. employee on the team.
Nice.
Everybody else is a fellow or a contract worker here, but all of our decisions are made by local Central Americans.
Nice. And
we just help provide the room for them to innovate and provide the economic mobility for them to do their job.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
what's your next liberal joke?
No. I think that's the only liberal joke I have for you.
Also, one more point is, if you look at when slaves were freed in the U.S. and all of the education that was started, most of the education, let's say all, a lot of it was through white allies. It's historically people with white skin are the ones that have privilege, and if people have privilege, just like you have more privilege than a lot of people in Ghana, so if we become allies, then that's how social change happens.
Absolutely.
So if we help reallocate resources to people in need, then we can start to see grassroots movements to make change happen.
Absolutely.
So I really consider myself an ally.
No, absolutely.
And reallocating resources to people so they can start to innovate at a grassroots level.
Got it. No, I think I respect what you do a lot. I mean, I give you so much hard time sometimes, but I definitely do. I think it's a good thing that you're doing. I wish I could give back. I'm working on it, to give back in the greater good.
You can always donate to Precious Alianza.
Yeah, I know. She's trying to pitch me to donate to her. But the next question is, I mean, we're all in. As much as we all love charity, we gotta eat. We gotta feed our families. We gotta take care of ourselves. How do you eat? How do you make money?
Yeah. Well, just like any company, my salary is a line item. So when we raise money, we also have to pay our people, and so that's just when we raise through foundations, part of it's allocated to our salaries.
Got it.
So that's pretty typical philanthropy, and that is a common question. But the truth is that it is hard. So I have bootstrapped a long time. I took a major salary cut. And even in the first couple of years, I was living in really remote communities and surviving on very little. So that was just a lifestyle choice. And through my experience, going more from a corporate setting and having a comfortable salary to where I am now, I just don't have as many material things, and I actually feel better.
Nice.
I feel like a lot of my money investment is in experiences. It's in giving back, and I love the way I spend my days, but I don't have the same material comforts as before, and that's just a lifestyle choice.
Absolutely.
But we can do it. Like I have a quarter of the clothes I had before.
I saw your apartment.
You saw a smaller thing.
Yeah, I saw your room in Beacon Hill. That's a story for another day. Good stuff. So when you go out, do you have people out there who just give money to a project like yourself, and how do you get funded, right? And as for me, when we go out to talk to investors, to be honest, as much as they want to help us, all they care about is what's in for them, right?
Yeah.
For you, how do you make that justification if you're not making any profit? How are you justifying what's in for them?
Yeah. Do you guys have any idea how philanthropy works?
In terms of investing?
Not investing, but how nonprofits like us get money and what's in it for them.
Not really, no.
Yeah. A lot of people I don't really know the VC world, right? Because that's not how we get our funding. So basically in the U.S., philanthropy is a massive industry because there are tax deductions associated with it. So we get money from family foundations. So if, for example, if somebody accumulated a lot of wealth, instead of distributing the wealth through real estate or other means that's taxed heavily, they create a foundation in their name. And that foundation accumulates interest over time. So it's this pool of money sitting there. So that's one way that foundations are organized. Also, if corporations want to engage employees, they will adopt corporate social responsibility programs. CSR. We work in coffee growing regions, so coffee companies have incentive because they want to show their end customer, which are coffee drinkers, that they also give back. So they want to attract customers that care about, when we see this is recyclable product, we're
Mhm.
more attracted to it, or this
Right.
was ethically sourced meat, we're more attracted to it.
Right.
So there's incentive built in these various channels.
Mm-hmm.
And if all of us in this room donate, it's a tax deduction for us, which
Okay.
means we can either give to something we care about,
Yeah.
or we can give to the government and
Yeah.
it's tax. So there's all these built-in incentives,
Mhm.
specifically in the US, to encourage people to give.
Got it.
And so we fit in that mix.
Got it.
And so we have funding from foundations that are attached to hedge funds,
Mhm.
that are family foundations, that are through churches.
Mhm.
And these are all mechanisms just built into the philanthropic market in the US.
Got it.
Yeah, and so it's, we do fundraising just like you guys,
Yeah.
but what's in it for them is, they either want to, they're either a church or a social organization, and
Mhm.
they have, like, part of their mission is to give back,
Yeah.
or they're looking for a tax deduction or to sell something better.
Got it.
So we just fit into that.
I see.
that
I see.
mix, yeah.
That's awesome. That's yeah. People don't want to pay taxes. It looks like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what has doing this is awful. Well, it's not awful. It's great, but there's so many bad days,
Your
right?
startup world. you
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Doing this is kind of sucks. Nobody forced it to do it. We signed up to do this by ourselves. How do you go through, when you hit roadblocks and challenges? I think one day, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, where I saw that you were, trying to put out a number of fires. Like, how do you weather the storm when you know that things are not going well? Even with the challenge that you told me about, the government doesn't want you guys over there or something like that. Like, how do you deal with it on a day-to-day basis and be able to still wake up and go continue working? How do you deal with that?
I think, like anything that's hard in life, when you're facing a challenge, you remind yourself that there's a bigger reason that you're there.
Yeah.
So always reminding yourself of your why.
Yeah.
So a good example is if, let's say, so I also do consulting on the
Of
side.
course.
And I do consulting with people that have challenges communicating effectively.
Mhm.
And one thing, if I'm working with a really shy client,
Mhm.
and they're going to an interview and they're like, I'm really nervous during this interview,
Yeah.
and I feel like I'm acting, I feel like I'm not doing a good, I feel like I'm acting when I speak assertively or stand up, sit up straight, and I
Yeah.
feel like I'm out of my comfort zone. And I said, you're out of your comfort zone because that is part of your growth trajectory to
Yeah.
get to your why, which is to be CEO of this company one day.
Right.
So all of us are facing challenges every single day, and we're gonna feel like we're acting.
Mhm.
We're gonna run into walls, and any time that you care about growing or making impact or disrupting,
Yeah.
that's just part of the process.
Yeah.
And it passes.
Yeah, of course.
It always passes. That's the thing. And it's just, if we don't accept that as part of the process, we'll
Mhm.
run away.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look even at relationships,
Yeah.
like, you have lifelong relationships, and we face turmoil,
Yeah.
but you just get through it because you care about that
Absolutely.
person.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's good. Good. So, do you guys have any questions?
I was gonna ask what Alianza means, but the more you said ally, I feel like
I love it.
yeah, gotta put them together.
Yeah.
Is that what that means?
It means
sounds French.
alliance.
Okay.
Yeah,
It
it
is-
is alliance, or
Allianz?
Allianz is alliance,
Yeah, I
the
see.
same, right?
I see.
So Alianza is alliance, and that's really, that name was kind of from my frustration of how a lot of international development work is done. It's really like top down imposed.
Mhm.
When I was there, I saw two types of social impact projects. One was, a lot of it came from churches, which is fine if there's no strings attached, but it would be like, you can get medical care if you go to a sermon.
Mm.
It was like all these strings attached, like you have to assimilate to something that doesn't fit your lifestyle.
Yeah.
And to me, that's not true service or social impact. That's a form of manipulation. And you're taking advantage of people that are in desperate situations. And so I was really frustrated seeing that. The second thing I saw a lot of were big coffee companies cobbling together social projects, but they were really just helping their own supply chain. So if I only offered you training to continue to be a coffee farmer, which is a very risky industry because of climate change, it's risky because the market is volatile, it's a really hard crop to maintain. And if I'm only training you to do that and saying it's a social project, that's not truly about social benefit. That is for my supply chain benefit. So I saw these other ways of helping that I found to be false. And I was like, we can be just as innovative as any company here And there's proof of this in other ways. Like there's so much other disruption when you empower people. Like Mass Challenge is about empowering people, right? Give people the space, the knowledge, the resources to elevate. That's exactly what we are. Like we're gonna invest in people so they can lift their own circumstances. And that model's replicated in the US all the time. And so that we're just replicating it down there. So I was really frustrated and was like, okay, we're allies in this because I don't want to live in a world knowing that I'm drinking coffee and there are 4 million children across the world that can't get to school because I drink coffee. So how can I change that? Just like none of us want to live in a world where there's trash on the street. We don't want to live in the world where our oceans are polluted or our climate's changing. Like, so we all take steps to improve it. And we're all allies through that process. We may never even like see the effect of climate change, will be gone, but we know some other person's going to experience it, right?
Hence Alianza.
Hence Alianza. Sorry, you can tell I'm very passionate about this. And it's also different because when you see it, I don't know if you guys have ever seen like extreme poverty in rural, poor countries. Yeah. And you see it and you're just like, it touches you in a way. And for me, I was living there. I was the only foreigner living there. And so I was just enveloped in this whole new world and this whole new culture. So...
poverty is real. I mean, I come from Ghana, and it's pretty real. So I definitely know how it is and what to feel when you go down there and you start feeling that way. But anyway, Anthony, do you guys have any questions? Very different. I mean, she's not making a lot of money per se. I mean, because it's different. She wants to give back. I actually think it's a really good thing. I think that's what we should all be doing. But do you guys have any questions for her?
Have you been back to Nicaragua since?
Yeah, so I visit Central America 3 times a year to check on our projects and meet. I'm actually going to be down there next week, and I'm bringing a coffee company partner that's helping us build a school. I'm bringing some other donors and board members, and it's just a way for everybody to see our work and get everybody involved, right? Because like I said, we all have a heart, we want to change things, but when you actually see it, like if you see the plastic bottle in the ocean, it changes you, and we want people to see why we're there. And what I think is, so yes, I go back, but another really important point about poverty is that it's like you see that, wow, people are living in really challenging circumstances, but also it was eye-opening for me because I saw these conditions force people to be very resourceful. And so that's how I've become so much more resourceful. Like, I don't feel like I need that much. I feel like we consume so much stuff in this culture, and we become like distant from our family and don't spend time with people we care about, and we're just like focused on earning so we can buy more, and we're this very consumerist driven society. But like most people in the world don't live that way. Most people in the world, the majority of people in the world live on less than $20 a day. And so we are the minority. So I like learning from other conditions and other cultures to see how can I improve my life too.
Nice.
So in a way, like there's a transfer of knowledge by traveling there and living here and like finding that right balance. Like I just can't imagine living in a big house ever. I know that's the American dream, but I don't want that because I don't feel it brings people happiness.
Definitely passionate about what you. That's pretty good. I mean, I also have the same experience, right? When I go to Ghana, when I'm in the U.S., when I'm brushing my teeth, like that's something I've noticed a lot. Like when I'm in the U.S., when I'm brushing my teeth, I actually leave the tap running and open for like. But then I go back to Ghana and it's like I don't even have proper running water. I need to use a cup with water inside to brush my teeth. And it kind of gives you perspective. It makes you guys should travel and see. It gives you perspective to make you appreciate more of what you have and. Not just walk around and think everybody lives like this. Yeah. You know, so
we don't have consequences for overusing resources.
No, we don't.
So. Yeah. So it's great.
Yeah.
And you're all welcome sometime. I invited Jackson.
Yeah.
Where is he, by the way?
He is on the West Coast. He did not go to Nicaragua. He ended up going to LA.
What?
Yeah, he's in LA.
Jeez, Jackson.
Yeah, he comes back on Monday.
Okay.
He's been on vacation since Wednesday. He comes back on Monday.
Nice.
Yeah. So how do you scale? Because one of the challenges with nonprofit, you see them a lot in Ghana. Everybody wants to help poor people, right? The problem is because you talked about bureaucracy, right? Which is which is prevalent, right? Where there's bribery and corruption, and the people who actually need the resource end up not even getting the resources. You're gonna hit a point where you have to scale, right? I think Project Alianza right now, and it's great, it's working really well because you're passionate about it. You can touch everything, you can see everything, you can tell the people who have been corrupt to stop. When you get to a point when you need to touch 200 villages, like how do you do that without, inevitably, there's gonna be corruption and there's gonna be all these issues that you're running away from in bureaucracy. How do you think about scaling and how are you gonna combat that?
Well, I think what's different about this scaling is first with any sort of international financial exchange, we have an accountant in Nicaragua, an accountant here, and a CPA on board. So like we're very transparent with every dollar that's transferred. So that just requires investing. So a lot of organizations don't invest in that level of, like, that's a lot of money for us to make sure we have all these accountants at every end, right? And very detailed expense forms. And I think what's different about us is other nonprofits that I'm familiar with go in, if they want to scale, they go in through the national government and say, help us identify communities in need. And in a way, I say they kind of turn into puppets. It's less administrative burden on a nonprofit to go to a government because the government's doing the work, like pointing out what needs to be done. What we do, which is similar to this has been replicated in India, for example, is we go in at a community level and we find the local leaders and we get all their buy-in. We get the buy-in from a farmer because they're the local business. We get buy-in from community leaders, from parents, and we get all of them involved to advocate for our program. And then once we collect enough data, we take that to the next community and say, look, we made a difference here. Now let's go here. And so it's this grassroots up movement, and then eventually our goal is to present this data to the government, showing, look, we're making a difference. And that's already worked for us because we have approval to work during the school, during like classes on our literacy programs. So we have approval from the national government to implement during the school year. That is huge because we're like disrupting the school day basically. But they like so much that what we're doing, they want us there.
Lovely.
But that's all from the bottom up.
Right.
It's not, we're not asking the government, hey, we're gonna give you money to go build a school. So none of our money touches government hands, but we are like compliant with the government. But we don't give the money to the government. A lot of nonprofits do that, or they go through like big churches. And so everything we do is community up.
Right.
And we are currently in 22 very remote communities covering 160,000 acres of remote land. So it's really, all of our communities are really dispersed.
Lovely.
Yeah.
I do have this question, I don't know, it's an interesting question, which is, there's a lot of problem in America, right? There's a lot of problems in Detroit, Michigan, and Indiana, where you come from, Dorchester and whatnot. Why do you feel so inclined to go to a remote country and go have an impact when there's a problem in your backyard to fix? What's your take on that?
I don't think they're mutually exclusive by any means. So by me doing international work does not mean that I can't also be helpful here. I think like all of us, we have an attachment to places we've been exposed to.
Absolutely.
And I was exposed to Nicaragua because I lived there as a researcher for a year, and I became really interested in this particular region. And I also, so there's definitely the emotional attachment, but also it's a little unfair because the poverty that Nicaraguans experience is completely different than the poverty that people in Dorchester experience. It's a whole different level, and there's nothing there to disrupt it. And it's unfortunate, but the way movements start are by people that have the privilege, the power, the knowledge, choosing to disrupt. And even though I'm an outsider, somebody has to start. And I think once we start, others will take the lead. We're already seeing that. This is one way that education's been so successful in India. Is through these very like community grassroots movements, and we just have to, somebody has to be the disruptor, unfortunately. And in most cases, in these regions of the world, like I said, it's a religious institution that's disrupting, or somebody has a bit more self-interest,
Yeah.
whereas we operate very much like a startup.
Lovely.
So yeah, I've definitely been involved in a lot of giving back here in the U.S.,
Mhm.
but I felt that professionally I was equipped to do something powerful
More
there.
international. No, it makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Questions for Kristin?
Any local coffee companies that's supporting you guys right now?
Any
Local coffee companies in here?
Yeah, not in Boston yet,
Cool.
believe it or not, but we have 4 different coffee companies that give us money. But that's one of our big goals this year is to get more engagement. So that's part of our fundraising strategy. But nothing in Boston, unfortunately.
Where are they based?
Virginia, Portland, Indianapolis, and Chicago.
And how did you like make those connections?
Either they hear about our work and contact us. We source from farms, and then it's because it's a really short supply chain, we can understand like where they're getting their coffee. If they have a CSR initiative, we get in touch with them or they get in touch with us. People have heard about us through podcasts, through like articles in the newspaper.
You're pretty famous. I mean, you were
Pretty famous.
Yeah, you are pretty famous. Weren't you on? Didn't you get a standing ovation at the Pacers basketball game? She's really famous.
Yeah.
Even the Colts give you a standing ovation, right?
Oh yeah, you get like little award. Have you guys been to, like a Celtics game where they have like
Community heroes.
Yeah, community heroes.
Yeah. Making the home state of Mike Pence proud.
Oh God. Please.
Yeah, you're making Mike Pence proud.
God.
So.
Yeah.
But-
What's going on here?
Yeah.
We're getting spied on. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, like non-profit. What is going on?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, he left us back.
Oh.
Okay. Make it as real as possible. It's alright.
It's okay.
Yeah, I think that's it. I don't have that much questions with you. I mean, do you guys have anything? Or is there anything else you want to add?
The 22 villages, is there like an average community size that you know of? Or like, what is the range in like population?
They're small. They're like 1,000 people.
Max or minimum?
Yeah, like max.
Mm.
Like they're small villages. It's really hard because another challenge. So there's a million reasons. There's multiple reasons why we work in coffee growing communities, or just coffee perpetuates poverty. And so we really focus on coffee growing regions in Central America because if you look at where there's the highest density of poverty, you're going to look at that's pretty much where coffee grows. And it's not just the industry, it's like it grows on mountains, it's really remote, it's cheap labor, like you have to pick by hand. So there's all these reasons. But it's hard to know the exact number because people move a lot. So like they might spend half a year in one community, half a year in another community, migrating, looking for low wage work. And it was, I don't know how much you guys have been following like the immigration crisis on the border, the overcrowding of the facilities, but I've been reading about some stories that journalists are documenting, and some of the kids are coming from coffee growing regions, and it's people become desperate. And we were interviewed, some of our students were interviewed on a podcast, and some of our staff helped facilitate that. And part of that podcast, they interviewed a researcher, like a sociologist. And the podcast interviewer asked the sociologist, okay, what is the best option for these children, like that Project Alianza works with? And the researcher said, going to the U.S. border. Like that is their best option, and in their current circumstance is just leaving. Like imagine that we're all born here, and like mass challenges in empty space. There's no Wi-Fi, there's no food, there's no running water, and it's like, what the hell do we do? Like we have to squat somewhere,
Sure.
And if any of us were in that circumstance, we would have to become squatters or migrants.
Yeah.
And that is how people are forced to survive. But what's appalling to me is it's happening in our specialty coffee chains, like specialty items.
Yeah.
And so it's just, it's really unfortunate the world still is working this way. So we're trying to disrupt that.
Yeah, of course.
Answer the question. I'm excited.
Yeah, you do. It's a pretty good thing. I gotta bring you to Ghana one time. Maybe.
I told you I'd come.
Yeah, disrupt Ghana.
Disrupt Ghana. Oh, we could start an accelerator program. Are there
Yeah.
accelerators there?
There are.
I feel like that's something you'd be really good at.
Yeah, no, I want to give back, but yeah, I want to give back. So maybe we can definitely do something. I'll take you on a trip to Ghana. We'll go survey the place first. and figure out whether they're ready for Kristin, and then kind of take it from there. But anyways, well, if you guys don't have any questions, thank you so much, Kristin. We're really appreciative of everything that you do for TripBuddy as a company. Keep up the good work that you're doing. I think I'm rooting for you to really succeed. And again, thank you so much for coming today.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thanks for the pizza.